Poor girl sold water to pay for college, but a crime lord made a proposal that changed everything. Hey there, I'm Alex, your guide through today's extraordinary tale on Hearts of Crime. What you're about to witness is a story of passion and danger that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Trust me, when I say the twist at the end will leave you absolutely speechless. If you enjoy these forbidden love stories, please hit that like button and drop a comment below sharing your thoughts. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our daily uploads of these incredible stories. Stay with me until the very end. I promise the conclusion will shock you in ways you can't imagine. So sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode. Have a wonderful day, and may God bless you and your family. The heat was unbearable that summer. Penny Wilson wiped sweat from her brow as she arranged bottles of water in her small cooler. The street corner she had claimed as her own was strategically positioned between the financial district and the park, perfect for catching thirsty business people and tourists alike. This wasn't how she had imagined spending her summer break, but college tuition waited for no one. "Cold water! Get your cold water here!" Her voice competed with the cacophony of the city, honking horns, construction noise, and the endless chatter of pedestrians rushing to their next destination. Penny had a gift for remembering faces, the regulars who passed by her corner each day, the ones who would smile and sometimes leave a generous tip. But she had never seen the man in the sleek black car that pulled up beside her spot. The window rolled down smoothly, revealing a face that seemed crafted by an artist's hand, sharp cheekbones, piercing eyes, and a jawline that could cut glass. "How much?" he asked, his voice deep and commanding. $2, Penny replied, trying to maintain her composure despite the intensity of his gaze. The man reached into his pocket and pulled out a crisp $100 bill. "I'll take one." Penny blinked, staring at the money. I don't have change for that." A smile played at the corner of his lips. "Keep it." Before she could protest, a commotion erupted down the street. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. The man's eyes darted toward the sound, his expression hardening. "Get in," he commanded. "Excuse me. Get in the car, now." There was an urgency in his voice that sent a chill down Penny's spine. "I don't even know you," she protested, taking a step back. "The name's Connor Blackwood, and right now I'm your best option for staying alive." He glanced nervously at the approaching sirens. "They re-not after you, but they want to care who gets caught in the crossfire." As if to punctuate his warning, the distinct pop of gunfire echoed down the street. People began screaming, scattering in all directions. Panic seized Penny, and before she could think twice, she grabbed her backpack and jumped into the passenger seat. The car lurched forward, tires screeching against the asphalt as Connor navigated through traffic with practiced precision. Penny clutched the door handle, her knuckles white as they sped away from the chaos. "What's happening? Who are you running from?" Her voice trembled. Connor Blackwood's eyes remained fixed on the road. "It's complicated." "That has not an answer," Penny snapped, fear giving way to anger. "You cannot just drag me into whatever this is without an explanation. Let me out right now." "Not until I know you are safe." His grip on the steering wheel tightened. "Those men back there, they wouldn't hesitate to hurt you just for being seen talking to me." Penny fell silent, trying to process what was happening. The ordinary summer day had transformed into something out of an action movie in mere seconds. She stole a glance at her unexpected chauffeur. Despite his imposing presence, there was something in his eyes, a vulnerability perhaps, that made her hesitate to immediately jump out at the next red light. "Fine, but once we clear, you're explaining everything, and then I am going home." Connor nodded, his expression unreadable. They drove for what felt like hours, but was likely only 20 minutes, weaving through the city until they reached an upscale neighborhood Penny had only seen in magazines. Connor pulled into an underground parking garage beneath a towering high-rise that screamed wealth and privilege. "Where are we?" she asked, as he led her to a private elevator. "My place. It is secure." The elevator opened directly into a penthouse apartment that took Penny's breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, and the sleek, minimalist furnishings probably cost more than her entire college tuition. "Make yourself comfortable," Connor said, loosening his tie. "Drinks in the fridge. I need to make a call." While he stepped away, Penny wandered around the apartment, taking in the surreal contrast to her own modest studio. Framed artwork that looked like originals adorned the walls. No personal photos, though. Nothing to indicate who Connor Blackwood really was beyond his expensive taste. On a desk in the corner, she noticed financial reports and business documents bearing the logo of Obsidian Enterprises. The name sounded vaguely familiar, some massive conglomerate often mentioned in the business section of news sites she typically scrolled past. "Snooping already?" Connor's voice made her jump. Penny whirled around, embarrassed at being caught. "Just trying to figure out who kidnapped me." "Rescued," he corrected with a slight smirk. "And I beat Kimman of the CEO of Obsidian Enterprises." Penny's jaw dropped. Even she knew enough to recognize that Obsidian was one of the largest corporations in the country, with interests in everything from real estate to technology. The man standing before her was practically royalty in the business world. Why would the CEO of Obsidian be buying water from a street vendor? Don't you have people for that? Connor's expression darkened. "I was meeting someone. It didn't go as planned." "So what? You were some kind of criminal?" "Not exactly." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "My company operates in gray areas sometimes. We have competitors who like to see us fail, violently if necessary. And I got caught in the middle." Penny sank onto a nearby couch, suddenly feeling the weight of the situation. "I'm sorry about that," Connor said, surprising her with what sounded like genuine remorse. "Taz, but I couldn't leave you there." An uncomfortable silence settled between them. Penny stared out at the city lights beginning to twinkle as dusk approached. Her water cart was still on that corner, probably ransacked by now. Her phone was in her backpack. But who would she even call? The police? And say what? That she'd voluntarily gotten into a stranger's car. "I should go home," she finally said. "Not tonight," Connor replied firmly. "Those men might still be looking. You can stay in the guest room. Tomorrow, when it is safe, my driver will take you wherever you want to go." "And what am I supposed to do about my job? That water cart was my income. I need that money for college." Connor studied her for a moment, his expression calculating. "What are you studying?" "Business finance," Penny replied, surprised by his interest. A slow smile spread across his face. "I have a proposal for you." "A proposal?" Penny crossed her arms, immediately suspicious. "I am not interested in any shady business deals." Connor laughed, a genuine sound that softened his features. "Nothing illegal, I assure you. How would you like an internship at Obsidian Enterprises? Our finance department is one of the best in the country. Real experience to complement your education." Penny blinked, certain she had misheard. "An internship? Just like that?" "Just like that." Connor moved to the kitchen and poured 2 glasses of water. He handed one to Penny before continuing. "The summer program is already underway, but I can make an exception." "Why would you do that for me? You don't even know me." "Call it making amends for disrupting your business operation." He took a sip of water. "Besides, I have a good instinct for talent. Anyone resourceful enough to put themselves through college by hustling water on a street corner during a heat wave deserves a shot." Penny studied him, trying to find the catch. Everything about this situation screamed danger, yet the opportunity dangling before her was too tempting to dismiss outright. An internship at Obsidian could set her career trajectory in ways that selling water never could. "What's the real reason?" she pressed. "How people like you done to make offers like this without wanting something in return?" Connor's expression became unreadable again. "Let S just say I find you interesting, and perhaps I feel I owe you for today is inconvenience." Before Penny could respond, Connor's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and frowned. "I need to take this. Think about my offer. The guest room is down the hall on the right. There is a spare toothbrush in the bathroom cabinet." With that, he stepped onto the balcony, closing the glass door behind him. Penny watched as he paced back and forth, his expression intense as he spoke to whoever was on the other end of the line. In the privacy of his conversation, he seemed different, harder somehow, more dangerous. What had she gotten herself into? The guest room was larger than Penny's entire apartment, with a king-sized bed and its own ensuite bathroom. She sat on the edge of the mattress, finally allowing herself to process the day's events. Her hands trembled slightly as the adrenaline wore off. Sleep evaded her for hours as she tossed and turned, her mind racing with questions. Who was Connor Blackwood, really? What grey areas did his business operate in? And most importantly, what was she going to do about his offer? Morning came with the smell of coffee and the sound of quiet conversation. Penny followed the aroma to the kitchen, where she found Connor speaking with a striking woman in a tailored suit. They fell silent when Penny entered. "Good morning," Connor said. "This is Vanessa Reed, my chief security officer. Vanessa, this is Penny Wilson." Vanessa's professional smile did not reach her eyes as she assessed Penny. "Mr. Blackwood has filled me in on yesterday's situation. I'll be arranging for your safe transport wherever you need to go today." "Thank you," Penny replied, feeling self-conscious in yesterday's clothes under Vanessa's scrutiny. "Coffee?" Connor offered, already pouring her a cup. "Please." Penny accepted the mug gratefully, warming her hands around it. "About your offer." "You do not have to decide now," Connor interrupted. "Take a few days to think about it." "I don't need a few days," Penny said firmly. "I want to know exactly what I'd be getting into. Real details, not vague promises." Connor and Vanessa exchanged a look. "Direct. I like that," Connor said with a slight smile. "The position would be in our financial analysis department. You'd be working directly under our CFO, learning how we evaluate investment opportunities, manage risk and structure deals. It has paid, of course, substantially more than selling water. And if you perform well, there could be a place for you after graduation." It sounded too good to be true. "And what about yesterday, the people shooting at you? Is that a regular occurrence in the life of an Obsidian employee?" Vanessa answered before Connor could. "Yesterday was an anomaly. Mr. Blackwood was handling a personal matter that went poorly. It won't impact your internship." Penny wasn't convinced. "So if I take this internship, I am not going to be pulled into whatever dangerous situation you've got going on." "You have my word," Connor said solemnly. "What happened yesterday stays separate from Obsidian's business operations." Penny took a deep breath. Every instinct told her to walk away, to return to her normal life and forget she ever met Connor Blackwood. But another part of her, the part that had been struggling to make ends meet, that dreamed of a future beyond street corners and second-hand textbooks, saw an opportunity she couldn't refuse. "Okay," she said finally. "Dice will take the internship." Connor's smile was triumphant. "Excellent. Vanessa will get you set up with HR today." Today? Penny hadn't expected things to move so quickly. "No time like the present," Connor replied, "unless you have other plans." Penny thought of her water cart, likely long gone by now. "I need to go home first. Change clothes at least." "Of course. Vanessa will take you home and then to the office." Connor stood, already shifting into business mode. "I have meetings all morning, but I'll check in with you this afternoon." As if on cue, Vanessa gestured toward the elevator. "The car is waiting, Ms. Wilson." Penny hesitated, suddenly overwhelmed by how quickly her life was changing. "Just like that? Don't you need my resume or something?" Connor laughed. "We'll handle the paperwork at the office. Trust me, Penny. This is the beginning of something remarkable for both of us." His words lingered in her mind as she followed Vanessa to the private elevator, wondering if she had just made the best decision of her life, or the worst. Obsidian Enterprises occupied the top 15 floors of a gleaming skyscraper in the heart of the financial district. Penny had walked past it countless times, never imagining she would one day step inside as anything other than a visitor. After a brief stop at her apartment to change and pack a few essentials, Vanessa had driven her directly to Obsidian's headquarters. The security officer had remained largely silent during the journey, answering Penny's questions with clipped responses that revealed little. Now sitting in the Human Resources Department filling out form after form, Penny was beginning to feel the weight of her impulsive decision. The internship contract included a hefty non-disclosure agreement that essentially prevented her from discussing anything related to Obsidian's business operations. Standard practice, the HR representative assured her with a practiced smile. All our employees signed the same agreement. By midday, Penny had been issued a security badge, assigned a company email, and shown to a sleek workstation in the finance department. Her head spun with information overload as she was introduced to colleagues whose names she immediately forgot. "Don't worry about remembering everything today," said Julia Martinez, the department assistant who had been tasked with showing her around. "First day is always overwhelming." "Does everyone get onboarded this quickly?" Penny asked, still trying to process the whirlwind morning. Julia gave her a curious look. "Not usually. You must have impressed someone important." Before Penny could respond, a hush fell over the office. She turned to see Connor striding through the department, his presence commanding immediate attention. Employees straightened in their chairs, conversations died mid-sentence, and everyone seemed to find sudden interest in their computer screens. Connor stopped at Penny's desk. "Getting settled in?" "As much as possible on day one," she replied, acutely aware of the curious glances from her new colleagues. "Good. I'd like you to sit in on a meeting this afternoon, 3:00 main conference room." He glanced at Julia. "Ms. Martinez will show you the way." Without waiting for a response, Connor continued toward his office, leaving whispers in his wake. "What was that all about?" Penny asked once he was out of earshot. Julia looked impressed. "Connor Blackwood doesn't personally invite interns to executive meetings. Ever. What did you do to get on his radar?" "It's complicated," Penny replied, unsure how much to reveal. "We met yesterday under unusual circumstances. Well, whatever happened, you've got his attention now. That can be a blessing or a curse around here." Julia leaned closer. "Word of advice? Be careful. Mr. Blackwood has a reputation for being brilliant but ruthless. People who disappoint him tend to last long." The warning sent an uneasy feeling through Penny. She had jumped into this situation without fully understanding who Connor Blackwood really was or what she was getting herself into. But it was too late for second thoughts now. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of training videos and system orientations. At precisely 3:05, Julia appeared at Penny's desk. "Ready for your meeting?" she asked. Fair warning, these can get intense. The main conference room occupied the corner of the executive floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering spectacular views of the city. When Penny entered, several men and women in expensive suits were already seated around a massive table, their conversations hushing as they noticed her. Connor sat at the head of the table, deep in conversation with an older man whose silver hair and confident posture screamed authority. He glanced up as Penny entered, giving her a slight nod toward an empty chair near the far end of the table. As she made her way to the seat, she felt the weight of curious stares following her. She recognized a few faces from the company website Julia had shown her earlier, the chief financial officer, the head of legal, and several vice presidents whose exact roles she couldn't recall. "Now that everyone's here," Connor began, "let us discuss the riverfront acquisition." For the next hour, Penny listened intently as the executives debated the merits of acquiring a struggling property development company. The discussion was ruthless, focused entirely on how Obsidian could maximize profits from the deal with little regard for the employees who would inevitably lose their jobs in the process. "What about the pension obligations?" the CFO was asking. "We can absorb those costs if we want this to be profitable." "Legal has found a loophole," replied a sharp-featured woman. "If we structure the acquisition correctly, we can avoid taking on most of their legacy costs." Penny frowned, making a note in the small notebook she had brought. Something about the discussion didn't sit right with her, but she remained silent, observing. "Ms. Wilson," Connor said suddenly, causing all eyes to turn to her. "You seem to have thoughts on the matter. Please, share with the group." As Penny froze, caught off guard. I'm just taking notes, Mr. Blackwood." "You'd have been frowning for the past 10 minutes, he countered. "If you have concerns, now is the time to voice them." Put on the spot, Penny took a deep breath. "It is not my place to comment on company strategy." "And I'm making it your place," Connor replied, his tone leaving no room for evasion. "Consider it your first assignment." The room fell silent as everyone waited for her response. Penny glanced down at her notes, gathering her thoughts. "From what I understand," she began carefully, Riverfront has valuable assets beyond their real estate holdings, specifically their engineering talent and their relationships with city planning commissions across 3 states. If the goal is long-term growth rather than short-term profit, preserving those assets might be worth the additional pension costs. She expected dismissal. Instead, Connor leaned forward, interested. Continue. Emboldened, Penny outlined a different approach to the acquisition, one that would preserve jobs and honor pension obligations while still providing Obsidian with strategic advantages in markets they had struggled to penetrate. When she finished, the room remained silent. The CFO looked annoyed, while several others appeared thoughtful. Connor's expression was unreadable. "Thank you for your input, Ms. Wilson," he said finally. "An interesting perspective. We'll take it under advisement." The meeting continued, but Penny noticed a subtle shift in the discussion. Some of the executives began incorporating elements of her suggestion, proposing modifications to the acquisition strategy that were less predatory. As the meeting concluded, Connor asked Penny to remain behind. Once they were alone, he studied her with renewed interest. "That was unexpected," he said. "Most interns wouldn't have the courage to speak up like that, especially on their first day." "You didn't leave me much choice," Penny pointed out. "True." A smile played at the corner of his lips. "But I am glad you rose to the challenge. Your approach had merit, though it lacks the profit margins our shareholders expect." "There are different kinds of value beyond immediate profit," Penny replied. "Building goodwill has long-term benefits that don't show up on quarterly reports." Connor laughed. "Now you sound like my father. He built this company on similar principles." "And you don't share them?" Penny asked boldly. His expression darkened slightly. "Business has changed. Sentimentality is a luxury we can afford in today's market." "Is that why those men were shooting at you yesterday? Because of your unsentimental business practices?" Connor's eyes narrowed. "You're very direct, Ms. Wilson." "I believe in understanding what I am getting into," she countered. "If I am going to work here, even temporarily, I want to know what kind of company Obsidian really is." Connor was silent for a long moment, studying her with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. Finally, he sighed. "Obsidian is whatever it needs to be to survive and thrive. Sometimes that means making difficult decisions. Sometimes it means operating in those gray areas I mentioned. And sometimes it means putting people in danger," she pressed. "That was personal, not business," he insisted, and it won to happen again. Penny wasn't convinced, but she nodded anyway. Whatever game Connor Blackwood was playing, she was now a part of it. The best she could do was learn the rules quickly. "I should get back to my training," she said, rising from her chair. "Actually," Connor replied, "I have a different assignment for you. I want you to review the Riverfront proposal in detail and prepare an alternative strategy based on your comments today. Consider it a test of your analytical skills." "That's CFO-level work," Penny protested. "I'm just an intern with 0 professional experience." "You'd be an intern who just challenged a room full of executives with combined business experience of over a century," Connor countered. "I want to see if your ideas hold up to scrutiny. And if they done a T?" His smile was both charming and predatory. "Then we'll know this isn't the right place for you after all." As Penny left the conference room, she don't shake the feeling that she had just been thrust into a high-stakes game where she didn't know all the players or the true objective. Connor Blackwood was using her for something. But what? Back at her desk, she found a thick folder waiting for her, the complete Riverfront acquisition proposal. As she began reading through the financial statements and projections, a message popped up on her computer screen. It was from Connor. "Dinner tonight, 8 p.m. We have more to discuss." It wasn't a tier request. Penny stared at the message, torn between professional curiosity and personal caution. She had already crossed one boundary by accepting this internship. Now Connor seemed determined to blur the lines even further. With a sigh, she typed a simple reply, "I'll be there." Whatever game Connor Blackwood was playing, Penny was beginning to suspect that she wasn't just a pawn, she was a key piece. The question was, what did he hope to win? And at what cost? The restaurant Connor had chosen was exactly what Penny expected: exclusive, elegant, and discreetly tucked away on the top floor of a boutique hotel. The maitre d' led her to a private dining room, where Connor was already waiting, dressed impeccably as usual. "Right on time," he said, rising to pull out her chair. "I appreciate punctuality." "Wasn't sure I had a choice," Penny replied, taking in the opulent surroundings. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the space, and through the windows, the city twinkled below them like a carpet of stars. Connor smiled. "There is always a choice, Penny. That is something I've learned the hard way." A waiter appeared silently, pouring water and presenting menus before disappearing again. Connor didn't even glance at his. "I took the liberty of arranging the meal in advance. I hope you don't mind." "More decisions being made for me," Penny observed. "I am sensing a pattern. Consider it a perk of dining with the CEO. His expression turned more serious. "You made quite an impression in the meeting today. Was that your plan all along? To throw me into the deep end and see if I'd sink or swim?" Connor leaned back as the waiter returned with wine. "I prefer to think of it as providing an opportunity for you to shine, and you did quite impressively." "I spoke without understanding the full picture," Penny admitted. "After reading more of the proposal this afternoon, I realized there are complications I hadn't considered, and yet your instincts were sound." Connor swirled the wine in his glass. "That is rare, especially in someone with no formal experience." The first course arrived, a delicate seafood appetizer that probably cost more than Penny H.'s weekly grocery budget. As they ate, Connor steered the conversation towards safer topics: her studies, her background, how she ended up selling water on street corners. Penny found herself revealing more than she intended. She told him about growing up in a small town, about her mother who had worked multiple jobs to support them after her father left, about the scholarship that had brought her to the city and the financial struggles that followed when it only covered part of her tuition. "So that is why the water business does," Connor said. "Creative solution." "Necessity breeds innovation," Penny replied with a shrug. "Not all of us have trust funds to fall back on." Something flickered in Connor's eyes, a vulnerability that vanished as quickly as it appeared. "You'd be surprised," he said cryptically. By the time the main course arrived, Penny had grown tired of the dance. "Why am I really here, Connor? Not just at this dinner, but at Obsidian. What do you want from me?" Connor set down his fork, considering her for a long moment. "Direct as always. I admire that about you." He took a sip of wine before continuing. "Yes, the truth is I need someone like you at Obsidian, someone who sees things differently, someone not yet corrupted by the way business is typically done. Why? From what I saw today, Obsidian operates exactly like every other profit-hungry corporation, because it has to, for now." Connor leaned forward, his voice dropping. "But that is not what my father built, and it's not what I intend to leave behind." "Your father?" "Raymond Blackwood, founder of Obsidian Enterprises." There was a reverence in Connor's voice that Penny had not heard before. "He built this company on principles of fair dealing and mutual benefit. He believed business could be profitable and ethical." "What happened?" Connor's expression darkened. "He died, heart attack, very sudden. I was still in business school. The board brought in outside management while I gained experience. So by the time I took over as CEO, the company culture had shifted." "And you just went along with it?" Penny asked. "It is not that simple." Connor looked out at the city lights. The investors, the board, the market expectations. Changing course is like turning an ocean liner. Incremental adjustments are all I've been able to manage. "Until now." Connor's gaze returned to her, intense and searching. "I am planning something significant. A restructuring of the company that will return it to its original mission while remaining competitive. It is delicate work, and I need allies I can trust." "And you think that is me, someone you literally just met yesterday?" Penny laughed incredulously. "That makes no sense." "Call it intuition," Connor replied, "or desperation. The people I should be able to trust are the ones I suspect most." "The men who were shooting at you?" "It wasn't a question." Connor nodded. "Thomas Mercer, my CFO. I believe he has been embezzling funds and manipulating acquisitions for personal gain. Yesterday I confronted him with evidence. He didn't take it well." So that is why you were in that neighborhood. You were meeting him somewhere neutral. I thought public surroundings would prevent violence, Connor admitted ruefully. I was wrong. The pieces were starting to fit together, but Penny still had questions. Why not go to the police? Say with what? My suspicions. The evidence I have isn't conclusive, and Mercer has powerful friends. If I move against him without absolute proof, I'll lose control of the company. And that is where I come in? Penny asked, beginning to understand. You're an outsider, unknown. Mercer and his allies won't see you as a threat, which gives you the freedom to move unnoticed. Connor pulled a small flash drive from his pocket and slid it across the table. Unless this contains financial records I need analyzed, I believe they'll reveal how Mercer has been hiding his activities. Penny didn't touch the drive. I am not a forensic accountant. I am a college student who sells water. You more than that, Connor insisted. Your perspective in that meeting today proved it. You see patterns others miss because you haven't been trained to ignore them. Penny considered the offer. Part of her wanted to walk away, to return to her simple if struggling life. But another part, the part that had always hungered for something more, was intrigued by the challenge. What happens if I find something? What is your endgame here? Justice, Connor replied simply. For my father's legacy. For the employees who deserve better. For the companies we be acquired under predatory terms. And for yourself? Penny asked, seeing through him. Connor's smile was tinged with sadness. Redemption, perhaps. I've compromised too much for too long. There was a sincerity in his voice that Penny hadn't expected. For all his wealth and power, Connor Blackwood seemed genuinely tormented by what his company had become. If I help you, she said carefully, I want something in return. Name it. Full transparency. No more half-truths or omissions, and a real position at Obsidian afterward, not just an internship. Done, Connor agreed without hesitation. Though I should warn you, this could get dangerous. Mercer want to surrender control easily. Penny finally picked up the flash drive. Then we'd better make sure we get this right the first time. The next few weeks passed in a blur of activity. By day, Penny maintained the facade of a normal intern, learning company processes and completing routine assignments. By night, she worked from her apartment, analyzing the data Connor had provided. The deeper she dug, the more alarming the picture became. Thomas Mercer had indeed been manipulating Obsidian's acquisitions, but the scheme was more elaborate than Connor had imagined. Using a network of shell companies, Mercer had been positioning himself to seize control of Obsidian through a complex series of financial maneuvers. This he is not just stealing, Penny explained to Connor during one of their clandestine meetings in his penthouse. He is setting up a hostile takeover. According to these projections, he'll have enough leverage to force you out within months. Connor paced the living room, processing the information. We need to move faster than I thought. What followed was an intricate dance of corporate maneuvering. Using Penny's analysis, Connor began quietly restructuring key assets, closing loopholes Mercer had exploited, and building a case for the board. Penny found herself drawn deeper into Connor's world, spending late nights strategizing in his penthouse. She told herself it was just business, but the lingering glances and brief touches suggested something more developing between them. Neither acknowledged it openly. There was too much at stake, too many complications. But the tension grew with each passing day. The situation came to a head when Penny discovered a critical piece of evidence, proof that Mercer had been falsifying reports to the board for years. As she hurried to Connor's office with the findings, she overheard an argument inside. You are making a mistake, Blackwood. Mercer's voice was cold with fury. I built this company into what it is today. You corrupted my father's company, Connor shot back. And I have proof. Size, what proof? Your little intern's amateur detective work. Mercer laughed dismissively. The board will never believe it. Penny froze outside the door, heart racing. How did Mercer know about her involvement? I wouldn't be so sure, Connor replied calmly. The board meeting tomorrow will be enlightening for everyone. There won't be a board meeting for you, Mercer growled. Not after tonight. The threat hung in the air as Mercer stormed out, nearly colliding with Penny in the hallway. He stared at her, recognition and hatred flashing in his eyes. "So you are the one," he said quietly. "You've made a powerful enemy, girl." After he left, Penny rushed into Connor's office. "He knows about me." "How?" "Vanessa," Connor replied grimly. "She's been feeding him information. I suspected as much, but I needed confirmation." "What do we do now?" Connor's expression was resolute. "We move up our timeline. The evidence we have is enough. I am calling an emergency board meeting for tonight." "But Mercer just threatened you," Penny protested. "Shouldn't we be concerned about that?" "That is why I need you to stay away," Connor said firmly. "Go home, lock your doors, and wait for my call. This ends tonight, one way or another." Penny wanted to argue, but Connor's tone left no room for debate. As she gathered her things to leave, he caught her arm. "Penny," he said, his voice softer now, "thank you. Whatever happens, know that you've already changed Obsidian for the better. You've changed me." Before she could respond, he leaned in and kissed her, gentle but insistent, a promise and a farewell wrapped into one moment. When they separated, his eyes held emotions Penny was afraid to name. "Be careful," she whispered. His smile was tense, but genuine. "Always." First out, Penny didn't go home. Instead, she made her way to a coffee shop near Obsidian's headquarters and waited. She made copies of all the evidence, stored safely in multiple locations. If something happened to Connor, she would ensure Mercer didn't get away with it. Hours passed with no word. The board meeting should have ended by now. Why hadn't Connor called? Unable to wait any longer, Penny returned to the Obsidian building. The lobby was deserted except for the night security guard, who recognized her badge. "Late night, Ms. Wilson?" he asked as she signed in. "Forgot something important," she lied smoothly. "Is the board meeting still in progress?" The guard checked his monitor. "Ended about an hour ago. Mr. Blackwood is still in his office, though." Relief washed over her. Connor was still here, still safe. The executive floor was eerily quiet as Penny made her way to Connor's office. The door was slightly ajar, warm light spilling into the darkened hallway. "Connor," she called, pushing the door open. The sight that greeted her made her blood run cold. Connor's office was in disarray, papers scattered, a chair overturned, and a smear of something dark on the edge of the desk. Blood. "Connor!" Panic seized her as she rushed into the room, searching for any sign of him. A noise from the private bathroom caught her attention. She approached cautiously, heart hammering in her chest. "Connor." The door swung open suddenly, revealing Connor with a bloodied towel pressed to his forehead. He looked exhausted, but very much alive. "I told you to stay away," he said, though there was no real anger in his voice. "What happened?" Penny rushed to his side, examining the cut above his eyebrow. "Mercer did not take his termination well," Connor explained, wincing as she dabbed at the wound. "He threw a paperweight at me before security escorted him out." "Termination? So the board believed you?" Connor nodded, a weary smile spreading across his face. "They did. Unanimously voted to remove Mercer and appoint an independent investigator to review all his dealings. It is over, Penny. We won." Relief and joy bubbled up within her. "Your father would be proud." Connor's eyes softened as he looked at her. "I couldn't have done it without you." "What happens now?" she asked, suddenly uncertain about her place in this new reality. "Now," Connor said, taking her hand, "we rebuild Obsidian the right way. Together, if you were willing." "Is that a job offer or something more?" Penny asked boldly. "Both," Connor replied without hesitation. "I told you the first day we met that this was the beginning of something remarkable for both of us. I meant it." As Connor pulled her closer, Penny realized that their unlikely meeting on that street corner had been more than chance. It had been the beginning of a journey neither of them could have anticipated. 6 months later, Obsidian Enterprises had undergone a transformation that business media was calling the most dramatic corporate reinvention of the decade. Under Connor's leadership, with Penny now officially his chief strategic advisor, the company had revised its acquisition practices, strengthened ethical guidelines, and launched a foundation dedicated to educational opportunities for underprivileged students. The Riverfront deal, Penny's first challenge, had become a model for their new approach. Instead of stripping the company for assets, Obsidian had preserved jobs, honored pension obligations, and integrated the engineering talent into exciting new projects. Thomas Mercer faced criminal charges for embezzlement and fraud, his network of financial deception unraveled by the independent investigation. Vanessa and several other executives who had been complicit in Mercer's schemes were also removed. On a personal level, Connor and Penny moved cautiously. Despite their undeniable connection, both recognized the complications of their professional relationship and the vastly different worlds they came from. They agreed to keep their personal involvement private while Penny completed her degree. But on the evening of her graduation, as they stood on the balcony of Connor's penthouse overlooking the city where they first met, the pretense fell away. "I have something for you," Connor said, handing her a small wrapped package. Inside, Penny found a crystal water bottle with Obsidian's logo and her name engraved on it. "To remind you of where you started," Connor explained, "and how far you have come." "That was perfect," she said, genuinely touched by the thoughtful gesture. "There is more." Connor handed her a folder containing legal documents. "The board approved the creation of a new division focused on ethical investment and community development. They want you to lead it." Penny stared at him in disbelief. "Me? I just graduated today." "And you've already proven yourself more capable than executives with decades of experience," Connor countered. "This was my father's dream for Obsidian, to be a force for positive change while remaining profitable. You understand that vision better than anyone." "Because you helped me see it," Penny said softly. Connor stepped closer, taking her hands in his. "We helped each other. You reminded me of what was important when I'd lost my way. And I hope I've shown you what is possible when you refuse to compromise your principles. So we were good for each other," Penny concluded with a smile. "The best," Connor agreed, drawing her into his arms. "Partners in every sense of the word." As they stood together, watching the sun set over the city that had brought them together through an unlikely series of events, Penny reflected on the ripples that had spread from that chance encounter on a street corner. One moment, one decision had changed everything. Not just for them, but for countless employees, communities, and businesses touched by Obsidian's transformation. Life rarely followed a predictable path. Sometimes the greatest opportunities came disguised as dangers. Sometimes the most unlikely connections proved the most meaningful. And sometimes selling water on a hot summer day could lead to changing the world, or at least a small corner of it. Connor squeezed her hand as if reading her thoughts. "To new beginnings," he said, raising his glass. Penny smiled, clinking her glass against his. "And happier endings." The future stretched before them, filled with challenges and possibilities. But whatever came next, they would face it together. The water seller and the CEO, two worlds merged into one shared vision, one shared life. The ripples of their meeting would continue to spread, touching lives in ways they couldn't yet imagine. And that was just the beginning. Wow, I told you that ending would be unexpected. If you enjoyed this story, please give this video a thumbs up and share your reactions in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to Hearts of Crime for more captivating stories, just like this one every single day. Click on the video appearing on your screen right now for another incredible tale of love in the criminal underworld. Thank you for watching until the end. May God bless you and your family, and I'll see you in the next video.